In this video, we're going to continue talking about this Pea Shooter, and we're going to focus more on these secondary leaf pieces here at the base of the model, and possibly potentially in this video as well as the back of the model's head. There is a lot of ways to approach this. These are pretty simplistic looking little leaves here. We could do these as like cylinders or cubes that get rounded out. But I'm going to take the opportunity to showcase a new tool for you, and to show new sets of tools. That way we can discuss them. So how I'm going to address these is I'm going to make a rough leaf-like shape using the Create Polygon tool, and I'm just going to model about half of it and then mirror that half over the other side. So again, to do this, I'm just going to go ahead and off to the side over here. It doesn't really matter where. I'm going to go to the top view. And I'm going to go ahead and use the Create Polygon tool to model about half a leaf looking shape here. So the Create Polygon tool is under Mesh Tools, Create Polygon, and it allows you to create all kinds of geometry shapes, whatever you wish. It draws out 2D planes, 3D planes, whatever you want to call them, but flat planes of objects that you can draw however you wish. And how it works, as soon as I click on Create Polygon, you can start clicking and placing vertexes, and it's a persistent tool again. So again, it just kind of stays put, and it just keeps going and going and going. I'm just clicking, 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 and at some point, leaf-like shape. You decide whatever it's going to be, and when you are happy with that shape, just keep clicking. You hit Enter to commit it, and it makes a plane. Now, I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but first thing is, since I know I'm going to mirror this, I'm only modeling out half of this. It's a good idea to snap some of these points, especially the points that are going to be, the sides are going to be mirrored, to something. Usually I snap them to the grid in my case. So I'm going to go ahead and go to vertex mode, right click and hold, select a vertex, and then I'm just going to snap this one to a grid point. These ones I don't really care about as much. This one I'm going to snap, and this one I'm going to snap here. And this one I'll snap here just in case I decide to mirror for some reason that way. So I'm only concerned about, in this particular case, the ones, because I'm going to flip this over to do the other leaf, because I only want to model half the leaf. It's generally a good idea to have a very straight edge that's aligned to something. In this case, I'm aligning it to the z-axis on the grid here. And to do that, again, I just grabbed the vertex and held down the X key, which is grid snap, and moved it around until I snapped two of those points, 3 in this case, for that one over here, to the grid. Now, the other thing is, again, this is an advantage of lectures. I'm looking ahead. We're going to eventually extrude this out, because it's just a 2D plane. It's just flat. It's a plane, but it's just flat. And if I select it and I extrude it, and grab the arrow, you can see you can give it thickness. But it's one big inside of polygon on both the top and the bottom, and that's not ideal. So it's a better idea to, before you do that, is to cut this into quads or whatever shapes you want to be before you extrude it to save time. So again, the multi-cut tool is Control-Shift-X, and I'm going to use the default method by holding down any keys on my keyboard, just the mouse, left click and hold, drag there, and I'm just going to cut here, make a quad. Again, quad is 1, 2, 3, 4. Return or enter. Put on your keyboard. Do it again. Just going to do all these. We'll probably have a try at the top, which is fine. We'll worry about that later. There we go. And we'll go ahead and do a try here. It's fine. Tries are, you don't. I want to say you want to avoid them, but you try to. Quads are generally better in the long run. Now the other thing that I'm going to do is I want to do some divisions across this way. So if I decide to have a couple divisions in there because I'm eventually going to bend this and deform this, I need divisions for that. I want some vertically. So now I'm using the multi-cut tool, and I'm going to put some going in this direction. If I hold on Control again and click on a horizontal one, it's going to draw vertically. There you go. And the first one did fine, and it stopped here because it's a triangle. But the next one's going to go through the triangle because it's no longer a triangle. As soon as I did this one, this is now a weird shaped quad, but it is a quad. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see it's going to go through, and that's not a huge deal. Just you got to account for that. So there we go. Do that one. And now we're going to talk about, because I don't like the geometry flow of this, we're going to talk about how to clean this up. To clean this up, we can use the target weld tool to move these points around to get them how we want, if it's a concern, if it's even a concern. So what I might do, and I'm kind of thinking out loud here, is I might bring this edge over here, this vert over here, and this one basically to over here, and then that would put a try right here, which that's not any worse or better than before, but we'll still have a try. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. So to merge this over here is I'm going to go ahead and go into vertex mode, go up to mesh tools, and go target weld. And target weld will allow you to merge subcomponents together, and I usually use vertex for this because I just find it the easiest to work with for my brain. And I can click and hold on this vert and drag it to another one, and we'll move it and merge it to that one, meaning it'll sew it together. There you go. You see, we got a try here and a try here technically, so maybe that wasn't the best approach, but that's okay. It's a really quick model. And there we go. And we have some geometry figured out here. Now, we can go ahead and extrude this first or mirror it. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to go ahead and extrude it first just to showcase it, to see what it looks like, and then we'll mirror / duplicate it over the other side. So to extrude this, once you've cut this up, Control E. And again, we could have done all that cutting stuff that we did while it was a complete 3D shape. It's just, it was easier and quicker to get it done beforehand. That's all. All right. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm fine with this. Maybe I'll put a bevel in here. Maybe I'll put a bevel in here. Why not? So I'll put a bevel here, bevel here. Don't forget these edges. So you already got a problem with that edge being right there. But that's okay. Maybe I'll put a bevel on there. Control B is for bevel. I'm going to manually type it in fraction there. There we go. Getting some weird distortion there. Scale it to itself to kind of fix that. There you go. There you go. So we can see we got this leaf-like shape, but only half a leaf. We've also created inside a polygon here, which is not a big deal, but just again, I can try to correct them as I go. There we go. So I just cut that, use the multi-cut tool, and cut that edge in there. All right. Is it a perfect leaf? No, but it'll work. It'll do. There's an inside polygon here as well, but I'm not worried about that because when we mirror this, it should resolve that. Now mirroring, I tend to have a little bit of problem with it sometimes. So what I'm going to do is, first thing I'm going to do is, and anytime you have a certain tool that you have problems with, I would back up and delete your history and try again. What deleting history is Maya keeps track of operations that you do in the program, and I'll just say it. I don't think history is honestly the greatest in Maya's modeling workflow. That's great for animation, but modeling it's okay. So I generally try to recommend keeping your history removed as you go through the process. So anytime you start seeing a lot of stuff in the inputs, it might be a good idea to delete your history. And to do this, you go to Edit, Delete by Type, History, or Alt-Shift-D. You added a quick key to it. So occasionally do that if you're having problems. I just did it, like I said, I tend to have problems with the mirroring tool, so I tend to do it for certain operations, such as mirroring, so deleting the history. It might work without having deleted the history, it might be fine. I tend to be paranoid about that. The next thing is certain operations you do in Maya tend to move the pivot point to the origin. In this case, this is what happened over here. So I'm going to go ahead and move the pivot point back to this object, and then I'm actually going to move it again. But there is a I want to call it a quick key, but there's a key function that you can do to move it to the center of the object under Modify, Center Pivot. Now, I'm going to detour again because I find I use Center Pivot a lot. And it doesn't have a quick key, and granted, you could go in there and bind your own quick keys, but if you're not really interested in binding quick keys, another thing you can do is if you click on the tabs up here, you have these little tabs. If you click on the Custom tab, you can actually bind certain things that don't have quick keys, or do have quick keys too, as well, it's fine, to this tab, this Custom tab. And how you do that is you hold down Control and Shift, and you click on whatever function up here that you want to add to this tab. So in this case, let's say Center Pivot. You can see I added Center Pivot. I already have it, but I added Center Pivot to here. I do it again, go up here. Let's say Mesh Tool, like Make Hole. Let's say I use Make Hole a lot. There we go, add it. I had down Control and Shift. When I clicked on it, we now have Make Hole here. If you want to get rid of anything on this bar, right click, delete, right click, delete. So again, I use Center Pivot a lot, as well as Delete History. So I've added them to my custom bar, and now on you'll see me occasionally, I'll call it out, but I will be going through my bar here. So Center Pivot, right there for me. All right, so Center Pivot is just a quick way to get the object back to here. But honestly, what I want is my pivot point to be on this edge that I'm going to mirror. So again, same way we moved those pivot points, we're going to snap it to the grid. But first we need to enter pivot point mode. Pivot point mode is done a couple of different ways. The insert key or the D key, delta key, will let you enter pivot point mode. And you'll see your gnomon slightly change. Very subtle, but it changes. Now if I grab these arrows and move it around, it moves the pivot point, but not the object. Then I hit D key to exit that, and then I can grab the object again. So what I want is this pivot point, D key. I want it to be on, it doesn't really matter where, but I want it to be on this line. So I held down the X key and I dragged it. And again, the X key was grid snap. So yeah, there's a lot of quick keys, but it's well worth it to get them committed to memory using the software as much as you can, because it will speed up your workflow tremendously. So D delta key is pivot point, and that's a toggle, and X key is grid snap, and you have to hold that one down when you want to execute on that one. And again, the reason I want the pivot point over here, and there's more than one way of doing this, but I want to mirror, and generally certain operations that you do, such as mirroring, will look at the pivot point to determine where it should mirror from. And so in this case, it's going to mirror from here. If I had the pivot point, for example, way over here, it's going to mirror wrong and it's going to look weird. So we want to avoid that. So you have to sometimes, depending on what you're doing, like for example what we're about to do, the pivot point has to be in an area that makes sense to the operation. So since we're mirroring, it's going to be mirroring from this point. So that's why we did that. And that's why we lined it up to the grid, so it'll be a smoother cut. If you don't, it'll actually, Maya will try to fill in the gaps for you, and we'll sew it together. It does a pretty good job, but if you want precision, this is the best way to do that. Okay, so let's give this a shot, see if it works for me. Again, oftentimes I have problems with this. We'll see. If not, I'll do it a different way. Come up here to I believe it's under Edit, or no, Mesh. Under Mesh, Mirror, Option box. I have no idea what my settings were. So anytime you click on the option box, it opens up the settings. And the option box, that little box to the right. I'm going to reset my settings just because it's a good idea once in a while. And you can see, okay, so what it's doing is going to cut the geometry, means it's going to cut down the line of the pivot point. And right now it's using the world space, meaning it's going to use this line to cut. And that's not what we want in this particular example. We want it to use the object. So if it's the object, it's going to use the object's pivot point to cut the line. Then you have to determine a direction. Now, how I've always done this, or memorized, and I could be wrong, is I want to go in the X direction. And I am going in the X direction. I think wherever the arrow is pointing, that's the positive direction. So we're mirroring in the positive direction. Let's see if I get it wrong, though. So we definitely want to change it from world to object, because we're mirroring along the object. We pick the direction. Yours may be different. If you modeled it a different way, and that's fine. You just got to look at the direction the arrow is pointing. That's the direction you want to go. That's the mirror axis. And then if it's, let's say you modeled it the other way and the arrow is pointing into the model, it would be negative in that case. So you would want negative. Now, since I am not 100% sure about this, I'm going to hit apply and not mirror, because all that will do is leave the settings of this open, so I can undo and try again. I'm going to hit apply. And I got it right. Yay! So if you get it wrong, again, you can undo and just try it again and try different, like I said, different settings. So give that a shot. It might save you some time. Modeling out half of it, and mirroring automatically will keep the sew things together if it works properly. So there we go. We got this leaf looking shape here. Now, in practice, I want to round this out, kind of round this out. It doesn't look exactly like that. I'm okay with that for right now for the purpose of this demo. But I'm going to duplicate this because it's always a good idea to save continued copies as you go. So there we go. There's that copy over there. And I'm going to round this out some. And again, to do that, I'm going to use the exact same tools that I've already shown you. I'm going to go to edge mode, double click this edge, and already it's stopped. That's a bad sign. It means something's wrong. More than likely what's wrong is I'm betting there's geometry on the inside of this, and I was correct. So it looks like for whatever reason that mirror failed right there. That's what's happening. It's trying to select that edge. So I'm going to select these faces on the inside and delete them. It's good to see these things though. When things go wrong, that way you've noticed a common problem. I'm double checking to see if there's any holes. There is. You can see what happens. So it looks like, for whatever reason, it looks like this set of vertexes were off. When I go to mirror it, I missed it for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it did. So what we're going to do, and how I checked, is I just clicked and dragged the arrow. Because even if I were to try to edge select now, you can see it stops once again. It stops at the same spot. So it's the same spot always. It's because this vertex is not sealed. So you can see this vertex is not sealed. It's causing a problem. So what I'm going to do to seal those is I'm going to select them. And it's okay to grab them both at the same time because there's one on top, one on bottom. Technically there's 4 there. So the advantage of having the heads-up display, you can see there's 4. There should only be 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge these 4 together using the merge operation. So I'm going to go to Edit Mesh, I believe it's an Edit Mesh, and do Merge. The default tolerance, I believe, on merge is like 0.01. So that means 0.01 units. That's a very small margin of error. So anything that's on top of each other should automatically merge. So if I hit merge, you should see that number from 4. In my case, dropped to 2, and it did. There actually is the default right there. And merges those together. If you didn't see them drop, that means they're farther apart than what the merge threshold was. In my case, I saw them drop. That's exactly what we want. I should have 2 selected. Now, if I come in here and double click this, it'll go all the way around. So was that ideal? It was definitely a problem, but that's great to see those things because then you know how to hopefully troubleshoot them when they arise for you. And that's honestly, it's going to happen. All right, now back to what I was trying to do. I'm going to try to soften all these edges up. I'm going to double click this edge, and I'm going to hit the B key, the Bravo key, to turn back on my soft mod selection, soft select. That's too small of an area. I'm going to hold down the B key and drag this area to be larger. And now, and again, I'm just kind of eyeballing this, and I'm going to maybe round this form up like that. That looks pretty good. I'll do the same thing. This time I'm going to select these back vertices, make my soft selection a little bit bigger. Oh, getting stuck behind something. Maybe I'll rotate this a little bit and move. And then I'll do the same thing here. I'm going to rotate this a bit and move. And I'm going to do one last edge, I think. I'm going to double click this edge and turn off soft select so I make sure. Okay, that won't work. Or it will work, it's not the way I want. So let me go ahead and grab this face. Actually, it should be fine. That's fine. I'll just do it from here. I'll grab these 2 faces and these two faces. B key, and then I'm just going to drag these down a little bit. Oh, it looks like I need to turn down my soft select. Like that. I don't want them to be so high. Alright, there we go. And if we were to smooth preview this, because remember, I haven't even smooth previewed this yet. If I do smooth preview, it would look something like that. You don't have to smooth it if you don't want to. It looks like a turtle shell. But there we go. I'll go ahead and leave on smooth preview for now. You can see I'll move it in. It's not the exact same. It's way too big. Let me scale it down a little bit. In fact, I think what I might, now that I'm looking at it over here, I think I'm going to taper this area. So I'll kind of grab these ones. Oops. Control and Shift to add. Once again, turn on soft mod. Grow this out. Maybe I'll scale it like this a little bit. Let me shrink my soft mod. Like I said, I'm just kind of playing now. Grow it back out. So I think it's too long. I'm going to squish it some more. Let's go ahead and move these. You can see the power between soft selection helps you quite a bit when you're doing organic stuff. So there you go, kind of playing with that form a little bit more to kind of get it the way I want it. And I'm going to go ahead and delete history just out of habit. This is a habit for me. And delete that history. Alright. Now, just for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. And I'm going to go ahead and use my top view, tapping spacebar here. 4. I'm taking a look here. That's fine, I guess. It's a little off. Just kind of adjusting this. Looking, okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move the pivot point. Move the pivot point to the origin. So again, pivot point mode is the D key, the delta key. I'm going to hold down X and drag this to the origin. And I can make copies of this and just rotate it. So I just did duplicate, Control D, and I can rotate this. Now, that's fine. It's absolutely fine. But I'm going to show you, while I'm here, I'm going to show you one last trick you can do before moving on. Is let's say I copy this, I'm not happy with the leaf and I want to make changes. Well, what we can do is we can make an instance of this, and then we can kind of manipulate all the leaves at once to kind of see what things will look like. So for example, let's say it needs to be a little rounder or something wrong with it. I can duplicate them all out first. I can kind of see them all together, but if I make those copies instance, I only have to change one of them and it'll update to all the leaves. So to make an instance copy, you go to Duplicate Special, under Edit, Duplicate Special, option box. And you can switch this to instance. Let me reset this, because it's not on instance by default. Set this to instance, and do Duplicate Special. Now, it looks like just like another copy. In fact, it's kind of, honestly, kind of hidden. If you ask me. So you can see, there we go. I've made some duplicates. They're not all perfectly 90 degrees. I think that's fine. And if I come in here and I edit one of these, oh, I forgot I didn't make these other ones instances. Doesn't work if you don't make them instances, right? Duplicate special. And then one more time. The quick key for duplicate special is Control Shift D. You just add Shift to it. But now if I come in here and I edit any one of these, you can see it selects on all of them. If I hit soft mod, for example, maybe I think it's too pointy here, I want to maybe flatten a bit, maybe bring this in some. You can see we can adjust this. Or if I want to bring, maybe this edge here, maybe I want to bevel this edge for some reason, and then select this face and come in here, I can do that, or do whatever. I undid that because I don't want to go down that route. So you can manipulate these all you need. Now, you can see on this one that when I was making shapes, you might be able to see on your monitor that sometimes there's soft and there's hard edges. And you see it up here at the top too. gets this weird crink in it. What this problem is called, it's basically Maya by default tries to figure out the normals, and it's what we do with the stem. We soften the normals on purpose. Sometimes it gets confused and makes some things hard edges and some things soft, and just depends on what you do. It's really up to you. I don't want these to have a crisp edge, though. I mean, you could argue that could be this piece right here. I'm going to go ahead and just soften all of these. And again, because it's an instance, I should only have to do one of these. Soften edges. And there you go. You can see they're all shell-like forms right there. Now, I'd probably do that part in a texture, but we could model that out. But again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to get to that part today. All right, so the other thing that we can do is, let's say you want to purposely break one away. Maybe you want to make it format. There's a lot of different ways of doing this. But let's say all I would do is to break an instance is I would just duplicate it and then delete the original. So in my case, it was 3. Delete the original. This is a copy now. So now you can see if I select these, there's the original. That's how I do it. I just duplicate it and delete the other one. And I think that's the easiest. There is something in the menus that you can go break instance, but I forget where it is off the top of my head. I'll look for that for a future video. So yeah, I just duplicate it and delete the original instance of it and move on. And there we go. So you can see we have some base leaves here. We're pretty much packing it up here. Next video we'll probably do we'll block in these leaf hair in the back of the head here and the eyes and eyebrows. So until then.